Hey there, card fighters. It's Alejandro from Team Midheaven bringing you a brand new deck profile. Normally, I do Keter Sanctuary, but I'm going to bring you something new here. And I know we had a few requests to do more of the startup trial decks, as like how to upgrade them and play them competitively. We have a bunch of plans for them. We're just promo farming at our locals. But for right now, I'm going to bring you a deck profile for what the trial decks could have and should have been with the Stardust Blade deck. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Now, the ride line did originally already came out in a previous set, but we're going to go ahead and talk about it as a whole. So here's your starter, Vyrgilla, based off of the manga, which is, I do think the unit is really cool. They really do know what they're trying to do by like designing the units to look very Yu-Gi-Oh-like, considering the fact that the manga is in Koro Comics. I think that's perfectly well executed, and it's also just a really cool deck. So the grade 1 is pretty simple. During your turn, it gets plus 2,000 for each of your rear guards. So you can spam the board, make your grade 1s really big. It's a good fun way to like punish your opponent if you just happen to draw into a lot of your grade 1s. And then also, more importantly, and this is where it's like generic in a lot of decks, when you would ride from Ride Deck, you can Soul Blast 1 instead of discarding. And then going into the grade 2, this is where the deck really opens up. He's got a couple of cool skills. So the important one is that when it's rode upon by anything, you check top 7 to add a grade 2 card from them, reveal it. But if you ride your Vanguard with Vyrgilla in its name over it, then you are able to actually search your deck for any grade 2 card. Not even like unit, but just any card. That'll be more important for a little bit later when we get into the orders. But his other skill is really fun. If you have 4 or more rear guards, you reveal a card with Vyrgilla in the card name from your ride deck, and it picks up a critical to end a turn. It's a really cool combo that you can do to start aggression really early, as long as you have the pieces to do it. And then we'll talk about the start of the deck right over here. Rewrite the star Vyrgilla. He's got 2 skills. His first one is his axe skill once per turn, Energy Blast 3. You choose one of your opponent's rear guards, bind it, and then you choose one grade 2 unit from your drop, and you call it to rear guard circle. And then his other skill is when attacks, you counter plus 1, and you can choose one of your grade 2 rear guards and restand it. And that is kind of like the core of the deck. It's very generic. It's all without. If it didn't have the bind skill, you would almost just say, hey, this is a Keter Sanctuary style unit because of how open and generic it is, especially since it uses orders. So let's go ahead and get into the crux of the deck. We'll start with the grade 3s here. So of course, you'll run 3 more copies of your Persona Ride. Persona Riding is always good. There's no reason to not Persona Ride in this game when you can't. And then this is one of the new units. You've got Flag Raising of Courage Fanbear. This interacts with the new grade 2, giving you kind of a pseudo Legion mate. It's called a mate unit, and we'll get into what hit combo does. But when you place it on rear guard, you Soul Blast, you choose one of your units with Ezrar in the name, which is the new grade 2. And both this and that unit get 5,000 until end of turn. But if your opponent's on grade 3, they'll get 10,000 instead of 5,000. Then front row, at the end of the turn, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Vyrgilla in the card name, and you played an ultimate skill order this turn, you put a unit into Soul, you draw a card and counter charge. So really nice, good resource units right there. So I think really solid addition to the deck. Just again, no reason to not play that card at 4, especially with that counter charging and drawing a card and just giving your other rear guard power. And that is it for the grade 3. So let's get into the grade 2s, and let's talk about the extremely important grade 2 of this deck, the one that you kind of could argue it's centered around. And I love his design. This is Ezrar. So Ezrar is really cool because it's just seemingly simple. His only skill is Mate Unit Vyrgilla. You cannot ride it, and you can only call to Rearguard or Guardian Circle if you have a Vanguard with Vyrgilla. So that includes your grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. They all have Vyrgilla in the name, even the grade 0 if you were to be on that for some reason. But he's got 15,000 base power, which is 5,000 more than a grade 2, and then more importantly, 15,000 shield. This is one of the few cards in this game that is just nice, heavy defensive shield, and you actually don't mind him going to the drop because of your Vanguard skill, because you can use Vyrgilla to Energy Blast 3 every turn, call him the drop while also board removing one of your opponent's rear guards, just in case that happens to be the unit that you don't have on the field. And then there's a few other cards that will combo with this as well that we'll get into in just a moment here. You have a few other grade 2s. We're just going to get into... we'll do the one that was a 2 of. This is one of the newer cards too. I think this card's pretty cool. You can play it at 2 or 3, and I'll show why I'm only playing it at 2. But when you're placed on Rearguard Circle from hand, if you have a Vanguard with Vyrgilla in its name, Soul Blast 1, check top 7 to add the ultimate skill card from among them, put it in your hand, shuffle the deck, and then if you have a grade 3 Vyrgilla in its card name, it gains boost. The only reason why I don't think this card needs to be at such a high count, it's just you're using it to search for your order, and then after that, it just is a booster, which is very okay, very fine. The only thing I wish for this card is that it wasn't on place from hand. I wish that you could use Vyrgilla's skill to call it from the drop, Soul Blast, search top 7. That might have made it too consistent, but I don't think this... I don't even think it would put it as a tier 1 deck. I think it would put it as like I think it would keep it just slightly above where it's at. I think it's a still good, strong rogue deck, very fun deck, very a lot of advantage you can get from it, but that is one disadvantage of that card is not on place from hand, which is why I don't see it being at any more than 2. And then, because you have so much energy use that you don't have to use in this deck because of one of the grade 1 cards, I do think Fallheart is a great card to have in the deck. On cycle, discard Energy Blast 3 to draw a card, and then on the Guardian Circle, you can do the same thing where you Counter Blast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to draw a card. His Persona Ride skill is probably one of the best, I think, in like the game outside of like Keter's. And during a Persona Ride, you pay the Energy Blast 3 or Counter Blast 1. You can call a grade 1 without Sentinel from your drop, call it to a back row center rear guard. And there's a lot of versatility that we can get out of this card. So being able to, during your Persona Ride, you could effectively resurrect 2 cards from your drop every single time you Persona Ride. So I think that's really cool, very flexible for what this deck is going to continue and want to do. And let's go ahead, and before we get into the orders, let's go ahead and talk about the grade 1s. We'll talk about the new grade 1. This is Cosmore. Not Cosmog from Pokemon, but Cosmore. Cosmore has 2 skills. When it boosts a unit with Ezra, so the grade 2, you energy charge 1, so you just get a lot of energy back for that. I don't think the deck was ever running out of energy prior because your Vanguard skill is just Energy Blast 3. If it was like 4, you might run out of that over time, but it's just, you boost your Ezra, you energy charge 1, which lets you use like your Fallhearts a lot more. And then his other skill is when your unit with Ezra and its card name resands in the battle phase, you resand this unit. So while it is just an 8k base grade 1, that allows your column, even outside of during Persona Ride or any power, if you boost that, that is going to be 15 plus 8 is a 23k column. During Persona Ride, that's a 33 column. It's a nice little magic number right there. It's a little bit harder to guard with that. And I don't think it needs to be a 4 of. You have ways to get these out of the drop, just like I said, with your cycle unit. You can go and just, during Persona Ride turn, if you just don't happen to have one, let's say the board removal is happening, you're just able to go ahead and use your skill, pay it, get another one from the drop, put behind your Ezra if you really feel like you need that there. And then I think because you're playing an order in the deck, plus it just gives you soul and draw, Shenri is just the way to go. As long as your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, or if you played an order this turn, at the end of battle she boosts, you just put her back into soul, you draw a card. She also gains 5k, so she is a nice 13k booster. Just very versatile. And then again, like I said before, you played your order your turn, you just use your cycle unit, place him, call one of these from the drop, and then you've got a card that will go into soul, draw your card, and plus you, which is just super, super nice. High value. You repeat it a lot. Unlike a lot of the other decks that can't. This is probably like one of the few Dragon Empire decks that's able to repeat the Shenris. Or of course you've got like any deck that can Persona Ride and do it, but this is one of the decks that wants to do it. And then my 1-up tech is going to be Justina. She is the unit that like searches your deck for an order and discards it on place from discard from hand. And then you get to, play it from the drop and then bottom deck the order. It's basically just a 5th copy of your order, which is really nice. I think just like it gives you a little bit more consistency. You can do it during your grade 2 turn, and that's where one of the big combos is, and I'll get into that when we start talking about the orders. We're going to start off, we're going to have the new Regulus piece in here, You in the Sky. I mean, this could be a flex spot. I just liked it because it's like the in-archetype one, and I'm a big fan of in-archetype cards. Has 2 different skills. You can, discard it from your hand while riding from the ride deck. You can Counter Blast or Energy Blast 3, draw a card, and then you remove it from the game. Or you can use it as a Blitz order, which same cost, Counter Blast or Energy Blast 3. You would remove it, draw a card, get 15k shield. But then if you bind a card or from soul or drop that has the same name, it actually becomes a 25k shield instead of a Blitz order. So very, very cool card. I like it quite a bit. And then there's kind of the bread and butter of the deck. This card has 2 skills that as long as you have a Vanguard with Vyrgilla, so you can play this while you're on grade 2, it's a grade 2 order, you'll go top 5 cards, and then you choose 1 unit with a grade less than or equal to your Vanguard, and call it to rearguard circle, and then shuffle the deck. You choose one of your Vanguard, it gets 2 skills. One of them is never going to work outside of one niche combo. It's kind of just like a flavor text based off of like what happens in the manga, which is when your rear guards are tired by your opponent's card ability, you search your deck for 1 normal unit, call it to rearguard, and shuffle the deck. And then the other skill, which is the one that matters the most, is your Vanguard will get 3,000 for each normal unit on your rearguard circle and your drop till end of turn. So what's cool about that is you can make like an easily 70, 80, 90k like Vanguard, especially later you get in the game by playing this order, and it makes your Vanguard the one that like your opponent is gonna have to like perfect guard. Where that gets crazy is, as I mentioned before, your grade 2, as long as you have 4 rear guards on board, you pick up a crit. I was playtesting with this in the game and legitimately got my Vanguard to be like unguardable when my opponent was on grade 1. I had the crit, and I even hit the Dragon Empire over trigger, where that's not always going to happen. But I restood, and it just ended the game like right there. We never even got to like grade 3, which was really, really interesting. But even without hitting over trigger, having like a 40 or 60k Vanguard with a crit while your opponent has maybe 5 or 6 cards in their hand, extremely powerful. Just a really, really good push turn by playing that order early. You just make sure you want to always have the orders, but Like I said prior, the ride line, I don't think I mentioned it entirely, but when you ride upon this, you search for any grade 2, that does include the order. So if you open up in the order, you can push for a heavy aggressive grade 2 turn, then you on ride, you find yourself another copy of the order, and you get to do that all again. So going first, this deck is extremely powerful, but I still think it's powerful going either way. So those are the orders right there, and we're getting to the last bread and butter of the deck. Just 4 perfect guards. I mean, you could play Elementary if you want to, but you have the Blitz order in here. We just wanted to go budget with this one. You get 4 of these with the deck, which is the effect one, so if it's the second to last card in your hand, you don't have to discard. I think that was a super cool reprint for the deck instead of just putting vanillas on there like I said they could have. And then getting into the triggers, you've got the Dragon Empire over trigger, restand your Vanguard, really simple, one of the most powerful over triggers in the game. You do that, you're able to get 2 more drive checks. It's extremely versatile, and I actually don't even think I ever checked is Vyrgilla's once per turn. So Vyrgilla is not once per turn when it attacks the Counterblast and restand a rear guard. So if you end up hitting your Dragon Empire over trigger, go ahead and attack with Ezwar, another time, attack with your Vanguard again, Counterblast or restand. So if you check your over trigger while you have Ezwar out, just between these 2 units, that's 4 attacks, that's 2 Vanguard attacks, 2 of these rear guard, 3 of that rear guard attacks actually, because 1 restand, 2 restand, and then attack again, and then you have the other rear guard. So that is pretty impactful as always. Dragon Emperor Trigger just continues to be a problem with decks that don't have once per turn on attack skills. And then for the rest of the deck, we wanted to make sure that the deck still had a bit of consistency while also having power. I think because of your Vanguard getting a crit on grade 2, not as many crits are as important, but front triggers are always important, especially since you're always going to have 2 standing rear guards after you attack, plus 2 draw triggers for that just a little bit of consistency. You need to see the order. It does not feel as good without playing the order because you want your Vanguard to be astronomically big, and of course flooding your board and thinning the deck. And then after that, you just got 6 critical triggers. Of course you still want to play crits in the deck. And lastly, 4 heal triggers. The deck is pretty affordable. If you're able to find it at your locals, it's like $22. It does not come with the Dragon Empire over trigger, but these have been reprinted quite a bit, so they should be pretty affordable. And of course, the only thing that is really truly expensive in this deck is going to be like your cycle units and the Shenries. But if you're already a Dragon Empire fan, you might already have those units. But even then, I think the deck is still incredibly strong without those. There are a lot of cool budget choices. There is that like grade 2 from a set 3 that like when you discard it, you Soul Blast one, and you can call it, and it become, you can boost. So you have a lot of really cool options that way. It's just a really nice package deck. I love the new rearguard support. Prior for this product was released or even announced, we tried play testing the deck, and it felt cool, but it wasn't like amazingly. It didn't feel as like clean on what it wanted to do. But with the new rear guards, it absolutely does. So it's definitely highly recommended. We'll try to find some space to make some content with it on the channel. And I hope you guys enjoyed that, and stay tuned for more fight videos, more deck profiles, especially with those startup trial decks once we get all the promos. And thank you again for the support, guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, and check out the description. We do have a Patreon if you want to support us directly, and have a great day.